And hello, welcome to another edition of One Big Thing with me, Nathan Bomber Brown, and the Mark Rogers, voice of college football. How you doing tonight, Mark?
I'm doing great, Nathan. I can just only imagine what we're going to get into here because, as we mentioned before we started the show, there are so many facets, components to this in so many different directions that there is a wealth of material to get to and the interpretation of what went on in DC the other day. And I'm sure we will get to as much as possible.
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt about it. I've done all the research absolutely possible, and we're gonna have a guest, which always makes things easier. All right. Anyway, David Cavucci will be joining us. He is from Foya Ball on Twitter. You can find him. He will be joining the show in just a minute. There he is. In fact, he's just joined. I want to encourage everybody while I bring David up. I'd like to encourage everybody to make sure you subscribe to the voice of college football. That would be Mark Rogers, and College Football Mafia, which is where I currently reside. And here's the go. You know, I don't like to spend a lot of preamble stuff. I'm just asking everybody to subscribe, follow, do all that fun stuff. But we're actually here, Mark and I, to interview smart people. And David is one of those smart people. Talk about somebody who's obsessed with a subject. How you doing tonight, David?
Good. How are you doing? You'll see I'm actually very dumb, but no, I like dumb things. So hopefully we can have a lot of fun tonight.
Oh, I have no doubt. There's so much to cover. The presidential roundtable. Let's start with that. We are talking about, and these are all let me just say all the hashtags that we were going to talk about tonight. And it's not even total. You have NIL, you have the CSC, the SCORE Act, the SAFE Act, the whatever third act that came out that people talked about on Friday night. And then you have athlete rights and saving college sports. And at the very last, but not least, is the P2 breakaway. So college sports in general seems like it's in chaos, David. Where do you think we are right now? And where are we in the next even 2 weeks? What's going on?
Sorry, I was just messing around with my lighting. We are in the perfect spot because college football always exists in a world of chaos. You know, this is just the same thing over and over and over again. You know, I actually got to skip the college football roundtable. I was speaking at a conference, so I delightfully got to miss that. And I used to cover politics, so anytime I can not have to pay attention to the president, I try to do that. It's a blessing after having about 10 straight years of that. But yeah, I think right as we hopped on, the news broke that about 18 students at the University of Nebraska are about to file a lawsuit against the College Sports Commission, which should win in like 3 weeks.
Right.
The SEC is planning on breaking away maybe in like a month or two. So, you know, to me, it's kind of business as normal. And that's why I decided to start covering this sport, because I kind of love the chaos. I kind of love how messy it is. I love how nothing is ever resolved and everyone is backstabbing each other all the time. The last I saw was there's supposedly renewed excitement around the SCORE Act. Nothing is going to happen there as well. So it's kind of like in a world of like very chaotic stasis. You know how there's just like atoms pulsing around your body, banging into each other 100,000 times per second, but like you don't actually move. That's kind of, I think, what's going on right now.
Yeah, I would have to say, for a sport that has never been able to figure out how to name a champion or determine a champion the right way, and maybe has gotten closer to that in the last 10 or 15 years. Yeah, we shouldn't be surprised by something that started out so collegial and so amateurish, but got so popular that these things were going to collide at some point. Nathan and I have talked about this a number of times in regards to where we're headed, where we've been, how did we get here? Why didn't we fix it earlier? Why didn't anyone see this? And I was reminded when I went live the night after the big roundtable that when Johnny Manziel was kind of caught by the NCAA signing autographs and selling them, but they couldn't really pin it on him. They got to a conclusion where they couldn't say that he was guilty, but they still suspended him for half a game for what, I don't know, because they didn't really determine the evidence. But that was in 2013. And I started squawking, then produced, videos to say, who's going to take control of this? Because bad times are ahead and very chaotic times, but nobody grabbed it and nobody regulated it.
I mean, how can you not love a sport that is obsessed with regulations, that has rules, and has no desire to actually enforce them, but only has, like wants to keep up the appearances. It's very, it's obsessed with the facade, the kayfabe, and like I kind of appreciate that. I'm like not one of those people who's gonna pass moral judgment on any of this. Like I'm just sort of into it for the spectacle. So like, while the NCAA is a bit of a disaster, it's at least it's keeps things entertaining by like always screwing up in perhaps the most impressive way possible.
So, and again, I want to thank everybody for being here. We jump into these shows. This is one big thing. It's a college football mafia / voice of college football mashup. We try to do it once a month. Timing sometimes works differently. David, you came in on very short notice. Last week, you and I met for the very first time. I think it might have been 2 weeks ago, actually. But then you had the time to come on our show tonight. And you missed the roundtable. You sound like that was a gift and not a curse. You've heard Greg Sankey's quotes today. All of a sudden, Greg Sankey isn't for a P2 breakaway, right? He's like, oh, I'm all for moderation. I'm all for if everybody will just do what I want them to, we can stay together as long as we can. Was that just a playing like a PR move because he sees there's a little bit of negativity around a P2 breakaway, or do you think that there actually was some content there?
Oh, I read that in the exact opposite way. I assumed him saying like, don't worry, anything they say we're not going to do, they're going to do. So like,
okay.
I think that's very clear that's, I don't know if it'll happen exactly in the way people are expecting it, because I think there will be a lot of pushback. If you remember when the soccer teams tried to form a super league, like fans were actually able to fight back and challenge.
I do remember. Yeah,
I do think they're gonna sort of impose their will because they have the money, they have the big teams, and they have the just the weight of the conference right now behind them. They're the two biggest conferences and they can do what they say. But I think would be happy to do that. I think these people are ruthless. I think they don't want what's best for college football. They want what makes the most money for them. So that's definitely a real possibility. And I think he had some caveat where like, if this doesn't happen, we will break away. I read that as like, oh, we're definitely going to do this, but you never know. I do think fans have more power than they think. And I think, journalists and enthusiasts are able, if they speak their mind and rally together, can make things happen. So I don't think we should ever consider this to be a foregone conclusion, but we should be sort of clear-eyed that they want this to happen no matter what.
David, I love that, where you said the fans have more power than they think they do. I bring that up all the time. I'll throw it out to my chat and say, do you know who has ultimate power in this sport? And I think they're starting to catch on now, but it usually just a list of, names and positions and so forth. And I'll say, you do. You have the most power. Can you imagine if you boycotted a college football weekend? Stadiums were empty. TV ratings were practically zero. Of course, you can't get everybody on board, but if you got a large portion of the fan, you would send a message to say, this would be a club sport, would be an intramural sport if it weren't for you. So get that point across. I know it's difficult to organize, several million people, tens of millions of people, but so dare I go to where I was going to go with this, David, because you made that statement. Although it doesn't matter to anybody in charge, what does the fan want? And to me, what I keep hearing is the fan they understand, okay, it's American, it's an American right of freedom of choice, freedom of movement to a certain extent, but we don't want 50 players from our favorite football team leaving every year. That's one thing. The sport that had the most continuity in regards to retaining a roster and retaining players, and nobody could ever leave. And you turn on Monday Night Football and be satisfied because all the players would say where they went to school, and that's where they truly went to school their entire careers. They were always an Oklahoma State Cowboy or a Michigan Wolverine or whatever. Now they got the complete opposite. Players going to 6 different teams in 5 years and can't even stay there for spring camp. That seems to be the one. And then what's funny, and this is just human nature, where before the players got paid, they were saying these poor players, they don't get paid. Well, we know that they got paid to a certain extent under the table, but these poor players, they're the product and they don't get paid. And And now that they do get paid, it seems like people are a little angry because when people get paid that are like 18 or 19 years old more than you do, and you're 50, then maybe that doesn't sit too well. So those are kind of the two things I think that hit the fan hard in regards to, I want to keep my team together. I want to know who's playing for my team and that they're loyal. And number two, hey, I don't mind if they get paid, but let's put some guardrails on this.
Hey, well, I was going to use what you said earlier about the fans having all the power to do a quick shameless plug for my website, foyaball.com, which is public records reporting on college football. You know, all these big schools are attached to public universities, and all these records that they produce, be it coaches' salaries or their travel habits or the meals they eat, or, you know, I can't even think of other things that I write about right now. I'm already at a loss. You know, these are records that are the right of the people. So we have an ability to peer into these programs, these big, you know, revenue generating teams, and see what's going on the inside. So I'm trying to shed a light on that. In terms of, you know, like, what do the fans want? I still think, you know, because of the way people filter through college, you know, you're not transferring, you're not going to 7 different schools. Like, the weight of the institution still carries a lot. You know, I went to Virginia Tech. I am a Virginia Tech fan. I have seen some tough times. I'm excited for these times. You know, if they lose 12 players in the portal next year, I'm not going to care too much. Like, I am, when it comes to the actual games, I'm a bit more of a casual fan. I love covering more of the like politics and business around it. So like, I don't think that is going to like kill people. I get when you're losing like star players left and right, but at the same time, like, I think people still care about the institution, and there's always, for every player you lose, as long as you've got, you know, a bunch of money in the bank, you're able to bring someone in. So like, I think fans really just want sort of what they had. Like, they want the conferences to stay the same. They want the rivalries to stay the same. They want, you know, things to be a little more normal. They don't want Maryland at UCLA. They don't want Stanford at UNC. And unfortunately, that's passed, and there's nothing we can do about it. But I think I don't think fans are too upset with those aspects of it. And in regards to paying players, you know, sometimes I'm like, man, maybe an 18-year-old shouldn't have like $5 million, but at the same time, you know, more power to him. Like, good for him. Like, they may make some stupid decisions with it, but that is absolutely their rights. Like, that doesn't really bother me all that much.
Hey, Nathan, if I can extend on that real quick,
Go.
Because you brought up that, yeah, an 18-year-old making $5 million, that doesn't sit well with the average American. But at the same time, hey, if there's 16-year-olds on TikTok making stupid videos, making hundreds of thousands of dollars, why can't they? That's their right. I don't have an issue with it. I wish they would be given some kind of education to help with that. But extending on my question about the fan and what the fan wants, do you think the average fan, and since you are a Virginia Tech alum and you're invested in the football team to a certain extent, would you rather have the knowledge that these players on the football field, when I'm watching on a Saturday afternoon, they're legitimate students, they're student athletes, they go to Virginia Tech, they actually interact with the students, they live on campus for the most part, or maybe they don't, but they're close by. They are legitimate students, they go to class, they write papers, they do all those things, or they're a bunch of mercenaries that just wear the laundry?
You know, I graduated about 20 years ago, and I would certainly see football players on campus. I wouldn't see them in my classes, but that's okay. You know, again, like, you could say, like, you want that experience. You want them to be like committed to the university. You want to, you know, run into them at bars and stuff. At the same time, like, ask any LSU fan, you know, Joe Burrow was taking online classes for an entire year, went undefeated, won a national championship. I think anyone is like, man, Joe Burrow is not a real LSU Tiger. They're just like, he won for us. So I think that is kind of what matters most. You know, I've been talking to a lot of student athlete advocates, and, you know, the one thing they really harp on is like the way this has been so professionalized and monetized is it just destroys any sense of, you know, the amateur aspect of it has certainly gone out the ways, but any sense of it being fun or a community thing, you know, this is absolutely a business and this is a job. Like, they don't get to be in college anymore. And like, that's kind of a bummer. I think they don't get to, you know, now if they make a mistake, people are really mad at them because, like, you're making, you know, $5 million. You shouldn't have dropped that pass. Whereas before, you could sort of give them the benefit of the doubt because they were doing it, you know, ostensibly for the love of the game. So, like, I feel like that has been lost a little bit, but I think that's also just the way of the world in a lot of different things.
Let's do a quick reset. We have 15 minutes in. I appreciate everybody joining us tonight for the second episode of One Big Thing with the Voice of College Football and College Football Mafia crossover. We've got a guest tonight, David Cavucci, who is the founder, creator, and I don't know, just made stuff up in the bathroom one day.
I say CEO, publisher, editor-in-chief. I throw on so many titles on LinkedIn. It's great.
Those are my titles, so I guess everybody else should have them too. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go over to Voice of College Football, hit that thumbs up and like button for those videos. Subscribe to his channel. Make sure you're following all of us, but David Cavucci certainly on Twitter for being our guest tonight, and I really want to thank him for spending some time. If you want your question to be asked tonight, as everybody knows, please make it a super chat. I will try to get questions to the end that aren't super chats, but there's no guarantee. If you make it a super chat, I will definitely ask your question. All right.
I have no idea what a super chat is, so I'm very excited for.
Yeah, I was going to offer earlier. You were saying you were just getting started and whatnot. I'm happy to help. I've helped a bunch of people get going, so don't hesitate to ask, and I can go through everything with you if you want to. I created this out of nothing. Mark created his even earlier out of nothing. So if you need help, certainly we're here to bounce questions and answers off of. So I'm going to give you not a choice. You're now the wizard to solve college football. You have two issues. You have players that you don't want to have as employees. You don't want them to associate in a union, but you have to take care of them somehow. And then you have all the entities around college football who still wants to be treated like it was 1988. Notre Dame just won the national championship, which is kind of a dig since it was like 2 generations ago. How do you square the circle? How do you pay players and somehow take care of them so that you don't get incessant lawsuits? At the same time, you whatever you can, keep college football going, whatever the structure may be.
I should say, if I am the wizard, I probably would suggest unionizing for college football players. I do think that's probably their best path here. But if I could wave a wand and fix it all, I think I would probably do something that is like I don't want to say a salary cap, but like, this is a good question. I haven't really thought about it. I'm sort of the point where it's so far gone that it's just going to have weirder and more different permutations and eventually metastasize into something we don't recognize anyway. So I actually don't have a quick solution or an answer. I could not wave a wand and fix it because I don't really know.
If you can solve that riddle like the Sphinx,
well, I guess I'd be rich.
You will be a billionaire, trillionaire. Yeah, because nobody's been able to come up with the answer on that. Sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, not at all.
Someone with a better answer than me, jump in.
Yeah, I just think that we've got this SCORE Act. It's obviously being pushed more than everything else. That was the only thing that was mentioned the other day at the roundtable. And then we got President Trump saying he's going to write an executive order. What's he got? Like 2 days left, 3 days left. He said it was going to be done in a week. And I kind of read between the lines as that being, we're really looking at, even though he didn't diss the SCORE Act at times, but he was pushing it. But at the same time, of course, he was hearkening back to, the days of old. And I wish we could go back to that. Wasn't everybody happy? Well, that's not going to happen, and not everyone was happy. But so we got this SCORE Act. Do we just think it's inevitable that because the powers that be, if they really dig in, meaning the federal government and all the power brokers, that they're getting involved in this, Nick Saban and others, the most recognizable to college football fans, that's going to be what is going to be pushed, promoted, shoved down everybody's throats?
I don't think so. They were trying pretty hard this summer to pass that, and Cody Campbell jumped in and threw a wrench in it pretty easily. So just because Nick Saban and President Trump probably don't have as much sway as they think they do in this industry anymore, and I think there's a lot of young big money donors who would be willing to fight it. So I actually kind of think the SCORE Act's dead. I think Democrats are pretty buckled in on making sure that players have the ability to unionize or considered employees. And I know Republicans won't want to go for that. So I think as a whole, that bill is dead. I kind of think the congressional route is a no-go. I don't know any piece of legislation that Congress has passed in the past 3 or 4 years on any matter that has, made an impact in the world. It could be wrong. Don't quote me. But like, I just think that's unfortunately, it's one of those avenues where people are like saying, please save us. But you're like asking a guy who is drowning themselves and doesn't have a life vest to like help you. And there's just sort of I don't think there's a great recourse there.
I got a question from Daniel, the other Gygax. He's a contributor around here, the voice of college football and college football mafia. Appreciate him. $5 super chat. He says, what does David think of VPI's rumors to the SEC? Yes, he's from West Virginia, so that's where VPI comes from.
You're talking about Virginia Polytechnic Institute? I remember them being rumored going to the SEC back in like 2005-06 when that first wave of expansion hit. Okay. I can't remember if this was them leaving the Big East to join the SEC or if when they were in the ACC, the SEC was thinking about poaching them. I am sort of an ACC old head. I am happy in the ACC. If there is a big super league, I do not want my team left behind. So I would be happy if they sort of got in there kicking and screaming, whatever which way. But like, I have a lot of charm for the ACC. When Maryland left, I was actually not like distraught about that, but I was pretty bummed. Like I grew up watching those great Duke Maryland basketball games. So like to lose that rivalry really sucks. But if it was a choice between the SEC and the Big Ten, I would take the SEC for Virginia Tech. Did I miss something this week? This is the first time hearing of this.
No. Look around here. We've only met a little bit ago. We do Realignment around here. The channel was started covering all the extemporaneous stuff around college football, the fun stuff. That you draw a picture in the dirt and come up with something. So that's where that question comes from, because obviously he's West Virginia, so he's looking across the border saying now Virginia Tech. They go SEC, now West Virginia's left alone. So he really is in tune with that part of the country.
Yeah, I guess I would say Virginia Tech made a big mistake not making that jump, many, many years ago, although they'd probably be in some like Arkansas type no man's land, hanging out at 5 and 6 all the time. So like maybe they're right not to do it. But like I remember the SEC was flirting with them pretty hard a while ago, and it seemed like a real possibility to me, but who knows? Maybe, history repeats itself. So maybe we'll be seeing those rumors again soon.
I'm going to get back to my last question, but I'm going to keep this going down this trail because I would have been the last person, I think, along with Nathan and probably along with you, David, even though I've only been talking to you for 10 or 15 minutes, that would want the federal government to get involved in college athletics. Yeah. Absolutely no. No, thank you. However, and I'm not pushing for the SCORE Act, I would have to read it over and over and over, but I am not championing that either. But doesn't this sport need a governing body? And the reason I don't see it coming together through the likes of the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC, unless the Big Ten and the SEC can work out their disagreements, although they kind of formed this union, about a year and a half ago. And then the rhetoric right after that was all the points in which they can't agree. Because what came to light for me during the pandemic was all these conferences just basically do whatever they want. There's no continuity between them. So the SEC basically said, we got a pandemic and we're going to try to keep you safe, but it's most important to play football. So
I think the SEC said we did pandemic, but that was slightly different.
Yeah, basically. I'm sorry, David. I wanted
to. I'm just kidding. I was in New York. Going, Mark. Down south, we're like, what the heck are they doing down there? But
yeah, they're basically saying we're playing football. Okay, we understand there's some kind of pandemic, so we're going to have to give the facade of taking care of everyone, but we're playing football. And then you had the Big 12 and the ACC kind of followed along. And then the Pac-12 was on the other end of the spectrum. It's not important that we play football. Forget it. We probably won't. And then they finally did play like 4 games at the end, most of them. And the Big Ten to me was a little bit more fascinating in that you had this dichotomy between the administrators, the schools, the academic side that was like, no, we're not playing football. They actually announce we're not playing a football season, but then the fans, the coaches, the players, the Midwestern sensibilities of sorts clashed with that, and they ended up playing football. But it was the biggest battleground of, okay, we basically have this standoff. So anyway, but we got overall this very good view of the way college football is run. And it's run by the college commissioners doing whatever they want, the conference commissioners. And this just continues on and on with obviously the big two heading the bunch and doing whatever they want, trying to push the other two around. So we need some kind of governing body, in my view, whether that's commissioner or governing body, to manage this sport and work through these issues.
Yeah, I think the pandemic, when we look back in this, 20, 50 years, that'll sort of be maybe not the breaking point, but people realize that the TV money is driving this. And that is it. There is no other argument behind this. Like, it has nothing to do with these kids' education. Not that it ever did. It has nothing to do with the institutions wanting to support a healthy athletics program. It has nothing to do about shaping and molding young men. It was TV money, and that TV money needed to be satisfied and fulfilled. And the pandemic proved that it's just, those are the dollars that they're chasing, and nothing else matters. So, honestly, just put a TV executive on top of it, like someone who, maybe not like David Zaslav, because he's, sunk a bunch of things, but the guy behind Netflix, just put him in charge of it and let him decide what to do. And maybe we'll all be better for it. At least they'll be realistic about what the problems are and what they need, as opposed to, people still trying to pretend that it's the 1950s. But yeah, I think the NCAA is just too tarnished and sort of too toxic to continue to maintain this. Also, it would be great if they could come together and say, all right, we're going to be overseen by this independent entity that's going to handle everything. But you see, the most recent time they've attempted to create an independent entity that would oversee everything is the College Sports Commission. And it is already, on the verge of falling apart. By the time we get off this stream, it may be gone. I'm not entirely set. And that was, so yes, I do think, given the fact that everyone has decided to turn this into a fight in a courtroom, which I support, everyone should sue for their legal rights. This is America, more than anything, more than that is your God-given right. But in the absence of federal law that judges can point to, yeah, I think that it is just going to people are just going to keep suing and suing and suing. So maybe I do. Now I'm coming back around to being all right, maybe Congress does need to do something about it.
You just went in the whole circle. That was a nice
Absolutely,
trip, by the way, David. And see, you just had the experience that 99% of college football fans have out there, right? Most fans are reasonable. Most fans want players to be paid. Most people understand having people have something around them to help give them their protected rights as a group. They are a class. Treat them in a different way. Fine, whatever. But just give me football on Saturdays, right? Just let me compete for what has now become a true mythic national championship, right? The fact that Indiana, and I'm not knocking Indiana, but the system has built and has made it possible for an Indiana to put its head up and be successful. There's a lot that makes people uncomfortable, especially some people maybe down in the Southeast. So it's you just had the experience. You voiced the experience. Mark expressed the question that we're all asking. And it's we know how we got here now. The mess is, so now how do we keep moving forward? Before we get to the next thing, I do need to call out 5 new memberships to the College Football Mafia. I'm sorry, Mark. I don't think they go to Voice of College Football. I will write you a check. Okay. I will write you a check. Voice of College. College Football Mafia. New members: Jonathan Davis, KSU Fan Man, Dakota Johnson, Edelmox 2626, and Blast Hole. Make sure you guys say hello and thank you to Bulldog Mississippi. Bulldog Mississippi sent me the flag that I've got up behind me. I don't get upset, Big 12 fans. It's just going to be up there for a little bit. But you send me something, you want to send me something, send me a note on Twitter. I'll send you my address and you can dox me or send me a flag and I will put it up. Okay. We will move along. So
can I send you a sticker to get up in the broadcast next time?
Actually, no, wait. Yes. For one thing, yes. Send me a GIF. Or,
you said no first.
Send me your logo. Send me your logo and we'll do this again. Okay. You and I can even just do a show. So you send me what your logo is and we'll do this whole thing and I'll let you go by. We have now been a half hour and I didn't really let you guys introduce yourselves. So first, Mark, why don't you tell everybody what you're doing here and what Voice of College Football is? And then, David, I invite you to sort of catch everybody up to what you do.
Yeah, we started the Voice of College Football in 2013. We got about 140,000 subs on like 35 channels. So we got all sorts of team channels out there. Virginia Tech, we need some hosts. So we'll take Virginia Tech hosts. We used to have some, so we got about 250 subs there, but our channel's down on the Virginia Tech side. But we produce
as Virginia Tech has been.
Exactly. It kind of slid off when the Hokies kind of slid off. That's what kind of happened there. So there you go. So we have been around a long, long time. I've got a lot of other hosts involved. It used to just be a one-man band, me doing everything all the time, creating content, but I've kind of stepped back and we've got a whole host of, great people creating content, hosting shows on just about every team in college football. Again, the main 30 or 35. So go to the Voice of College Football and let us know what you think.
David?
Yeah, so my name is David Cavucci. I'm the editor-in-chief of Foyaball. It's a publication I started just in September of this year, so a long way to go to catch up to Mark, but hopefully we get to keep it going. It does public records reporting on college football, so I was a longtime politics journalist. I used to run an internship where I taught kids how to use FOIA to do investigative journalists. So we get into the weird and wild stories about college football. We've had some big stories about DHS surveillance at Ole Miss games. We've had stories about schools doing tax fraud through their NIL program. We've had some fun stories about the College Sports Commission, the NIL Go algorithm. If you saw that crazy Sacramento State valuation, we found the numbers behind that and figured out how that worked. Coming up this week, we do fun things on ridiculous spending. We did a big story on how much every school was spending on balloons back in December. So it kind of just goes all sorts of weird places, sort of wherever my brain takes me. We do have some stories on the CSC coming up tomorrow. So definitely get ready to check that out. But you can subscribe at foyaball.com. It's still sort of growing, developing what it is. But one thing I can promise is I think it's a lot of fun, and it's always very interesting and very revealing. There's always something new in the stories we're doing.
So I'm going to jump ahead of you, Mark. I apologize. I'll forget to do this if I don't do it right now. Right before we started, Josh Strickland, I'm going to post the link because we always share people's sources. Josh Strickland posted this right before the show. The biggest problem in college athletics, pro level revenue, amateur rules, a sustainable system likely requires a new legal classification, which I've advocated for a very long time. College athletic contractors. Athletes receive revenue share, NIL rights, representation, bargaining power while schools avoid full employer status. So I go back again to what we were talking about before. And is there a middle ground to be had between players and players in the organizations? That's the question, really.
I mean, they should just break off and start their own thing. Who needs the schools?
I've suggested that. Why not just do a new division, take it outside the conferences, and just run football? Mark doesn't like that.
Maybe I'm showing my age here, but I think I'm also showing a little practicality here too, because if it becomes too, and so that's one of the reasons I asked David that question about, Virginia Tech fan, do you care the commitment level and the legitimacy of the players being students, which most of them are not good enough to play in the NFL. So they better be students if they know what's good for them in the long run. But my thought there is, if this becomes too much like the NFL, then it's just a really bad version of the NFL. If we lose the pageantry, the tradition, the connection to the schools, hey, even if a lot of it's a facade, if we lose that, it's just a bad version. It's just a bad football version of the NFL. Anyone who knows football can't compare watching the likes of, the best quarterbacks in the NFL watching college players try to play the position on Saturday. So it can't compare as a product on the field. So I don't think it should go that route.
Well, wait a second. I want to be clear. I'm only saying a new division. Everything stays with the schools. I'm not trying to take it away from the schools, and I'm not trying to not have them be athletes and go to class, even if it's remote class. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the top 68. What are we in the P2? 69 or P4? 69 teams maybe go to 72 to have things rounded, and just have that be a new division, a new subdivision, if you want to call it, from the NCAA, that can come up with their own rules, their own governance, but will also be able to continue to pay whatever it is top dollar for the athletes. Go ahead, David.
No, I do think it should be kind of cleaved away from the rest of sports, not in terms of like money and equity, but the fact is these football teams have enough money to travel. It's not weird for Berkeley to play NC State, but it is weird for a men's lacrosse team or a women's field hockey team to do those things. So like, I really do think I'm fine with sort of the conferences as is, but I do think it should be cleaved away, and they should let a lot of these other sports go back to more normal conferences and rivalries. I think that would solve not all, but a lot of the fiscal problems these schools are having, because like there's just not enough money to have these weird sort of long travel things for different things. So I support that. Obviously I do want them tied to the schools, not tied, but I don't think it would mean anything without them. I just think like, these schools have gotten a very sweetheart deal out of this. They've grown their endowments, they've grown their student bases. So like, I think they should finally come back and show the players some respect. So I personally kind of stand by the employer thing. I didn't quite get some of Jack's arguments where it's like, this will trigger health insurance for them. And it's like, well, yeah, that's something they should probably be giving players and they can afford it. So I'm not entirely sure with a lot of the arguments against just full-time employment outside of being like, they're not students, but that argument doesn't make any sense to me, because if you go to a college and you work at a dining hall, you're an employer of the school, and it's not like you're suddenly not a student anymore. So like, I think people are sort of making that distinction that doesn't really have a difference when it comes to that. Like, you can still be a student and work at a school and get paid by them. Many, many, many people do that.
So, David, what you're saying about football being so much different than the other sports because of the revenue, and yes, with these mega conferences, the ridiculous aspect of Stanford's tennis team having to travel to North Carolina to play a weekend where it's like, this is completely nonsensical for the student athletes, for the teams. Nobody shows up, and pays, so it doesn't support itself. I totally get. So some people have the thought that football's different. It'll stay within this scheduling and conference alignment model that it has, but the Stanfords of the world will play San Jose State, and they'll play all the non-revenue sports within their geographic area. But that creates this disconnect of what rivalries have been in all these sports, not football, but the other sports. So my thought here is that,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't think Stanford would ever deign to play San Jose State.
Yeah.
In the same conference, you're saying.
But rivalries like generate through different sports all the time. Like I mentioned that I loved those Maryland Duke rivalries of basketball in the 90s, and they never had a football rivalry. So like I didn't ever associate those things that way. So I think the rivalries will, if you do it this way, they'll develop again, and they'll develop, in a sort of more normal, natural way again. So like, I don't think if you lose, if you're not playing San Jose State in football, I don't think you're going to like hate them less playing them in field hockey if you really hate them.
So kind of where I was headed with this.
Sorry, I totally just derailed your thoughts.
No, you're good, David. You're good. You're bringing brains to this. So you're way ahead of me on most of this. But this is my stupid thought, that going back to the example of the pandemic, right now the conferences fend for themselves. We shouldn't be mad at Greg Sankey doing what's best for the SEC and trying to make as much money and promote the SEC. That's what he's paid to do. He's not paid to look out for college football. Same with Tony Petitti, et cetera. So I don't harbor anything against them. It's just like Notre Dame does what it's allowed to do. Can't punish Notre Dame. They're allowed to do whatever they want. My thought here, though, is if a governing body takes over the whole deal, then it's no longer the Big Ten scarfing up schools until it says, well, we don't have any more schools that are worth bringing on, and the SEC the same thing, that it can all be if it's one massive organization like the NFL, for lack of a better comparison, then you start to move the schools back to the geographical sensibilities. Yeah. And because the money's all going to one entity, anyway. It's all going to the National College Football League or whatever it is. And then we can get back to, again, the regional alignments that make the sport, not just college football, but the other sports, so great that we know what the SEC is, and we know the teams that belong there, and that Rutgers doesn't belong playing UCLA in the Big Ten. And we can get back to regionality in that way. And that's why I'm pushing for a national board or commissioner or governing body.
Yeah, I agree. I think the point about not being mad at Greg Sankey for doing what's best for the SEC, I understand that on a fundamental level. It's like, of course, his job is to make sure they make as much money as possible, and then they stay a healthy conference, and they're the best conference out there. But at the same time, you're like, you guys, come on. Like, I wish some people would just be like, all right, we've made enough money. Now let's figure out how to like do this in a more sustainable way. And that's why I'm like, I get that it's not his job to solve college football, but at the same time, he has the ability to do it. And like, you know, he's not looking to solve it. He's looking at a way to solve it in a way that continues to maximize profit. And it's like, when is enough enough? And that's an issue. And I still think you can be mad at him for that.
When did college sports, and I'm going to say specifically men's basketball and college football, become profit centers? They've always made enough money to support the rest of the athletic departments. It used to be they'd zero out almost every year, a few million up or down. But now, as Mark said, the money is just crazy, and it's so lopsided that now, instead of us talking about competition and our teams rebuilding in the off season and back to normal transfer portal, that's something we haven't even touched on, right? There's still other rules that are really screwed up, have nothing to do with the way the college football runs. At the end of the day, it's, you win this national championship and you'll have that banner forever, and you could die tomorrow and Indiana would always be able to hold on to that. And I totally support that as a BYU Cougar 1984, right? I'll never let that go. But it's not a money national championship, right? It's not a race to get more money. If it was, Ohio State and Michigan would have won every year for 30 years. And so now all of a sudden we talk about, instead of talking about competition and money and teams, now we're talking about, wow, how much money are they going to make in a media deal? And without saying it, by comparison, how much else is everybody else not making? Right? That now has become a bragging point for schools in the SEC and the Big Ten. Ha ha ha. We're not necessarily better than you are. We're richer than you are.
I mean, I would think, I don't have the exact numbers. I would think once you the creation of the BCS turned the national championship game into a profit, a much more profitable thing than when it was.
I agree with you. I agree. It goes back that far.
At the same time, I don't necessarily know if it's an issue. Like I personally, like I said, I love sort of the drama and the chaos around the sport. So I like talking about this stuff. I don't have, I personally feel like there's only so much you can talk about in the offseason anyway. Like Virginia Tech got Ethan Grunkemeyer as a transfer from Penn State. He played like a few games after Drew Aller got hurt. Like, is he going to be good? I don't know. That's about all I can say about that. So like, I kind of feel like in a way it's good that it's become so omnipresent that we're talking about all these things during the offseason, as opposed to when, 20 years ago, all you could talk about was like what recruits you were bringing on. So like, I think as it grows and as it gets bigger, these problems just become sort of what people talk about. And that's not necessarily, I don't necessarily think that's an unhealthy thing. I mean, there's issues with it, but the fact that people care about it and are debating it, I think shows how much it matters.
That's a great point, David. So this is my perspective on that. When I started the Voice of College Football, it was called actually Mark Rogers TV, and not because I'm an egomaniac, because I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I knew it was going to be about sports, but my first 100 videos were like Major League Baseball one day, the NFL draft the next day. I was jumping all over the place. And then it dawned on me, okay, nobody's going to watch this because they're going to be like, oh, this was decent baseball video. Oh, he didn't talk about baseball for 10 days. This is not a baseball channel, where it was way too wide. And I didn't have the notoriety to be like, oh, whatever this guy talks about, we're going to watch. So I got to niche it down. Well, my automatic thought was, what's the most controversial sport with the most debates? Because we don't know who the national champion is or should be, and all the other debates. Well, it's college football. And so I'm going to go college football. I'm going to niche down to college football. And so that's one thing. The other thing that your last comments, David, made me think of was the NFL seems to get everything right. Partially because they're really smart, but also partially they just kind of luck into certain things. Like football's the best TV sport because of the timing of the plays and everything. It just has become the best TV sport. So they kind of lucked into that. But what the NFL does right is that it's off season, to your point, means something. They're constantly coming up with something that locks people in. The NFL Combine, the NFL Draft, the lead up to the NFL Draft. Even the release of the schedule, the NFL schedule, is the most overrated thing that I could think of in sports. If you know anything about the NFL, you know who's going to play whom. You pretty much, we could all fill out like 85% of the schedule, but they make it like this national holiday practically that I would love college football to do and say, we're taking scheduling rights out of the hands of the schools. We're going to have a national committee formula that's going to build the schedule. And on May 1st is the national schedule release, and everybody can, go crazy about it. So I think that the NFL does it right with free agency, with all these things to keep the fan interested throughout the off season, but it's not the wild, wild west and so crazy that people are losing their minds and don't know who their team is or what's going to happen next year or who they're playing next, who's their next league member. That West Virginia fans now have to worry about Arizona State.
Yeah. And I don't know, I could be coming at this from a somewhat unique, I wouldn't say jaded perspective, but at the same time, I have been a Virginia Tech fan for a very long time. I went there, I graduated in 2007. There were a few years where they were, ranked as high as number 2, like in the country. If that whole team left, after a 11-1 season to go somewhere else, I would definitely, I think, be very upset about that. I would also be very younger. But so I haven't had to worry about that as much lately because everyone at Virginia Tech left after, 2 years ago, I was like, all right, well, they'll still be bad. So maybe I will get to experience this anew. And I don't know what point I was making. I just wanted to talk actual football and talk about Virginia Tech. But, I think that college football has those sort of rhythms as well. When I started this thing, everyone was going to ask me, everyone's going to ask me, what are you going to talk about in the offseason? I'm like, well, the offseason's as much as important part of the season as the actual season now. It sounds extremely profound.
Well, there is no off season.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no off season now. We were competing even before the playoffs were over because of the schedule for the next year. Everybody was complaining about what the CFP was going to look like in 2026, 27. I mean, it never stops. I can't think of one day. Yeah.
Okay. Going back to when I got to be a Wizard, I would fix the schedule, tighten things up a bunch. I would, not have the transfer portal happening while the national championship game was going on.
Yeah.
I would just ban coaches from leaving their teams until the end of the season. I think that would solve many problems.
There you go. Okay. We are 48 minutes into this. I want to thank everybody being here. This is, and I lost my lettering because I did my share screen, so I apologize. Here we go. Let's go back to where David's bigger than we are, Mark. This is One Big Thing on the Voice of College Football and College Football Mafia. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. This is Mark Rogers, I think this guy. And down here is David Cavucci, who's our guest, and we're talking about really you could just throw a rock and playing like hopscotch, and any square you land on, you could literally do 20 hours of programming. That's how crazy college football is now. I went to create a list. I was trying to give Mark some background. We might cover these things, and the list didn't, Mark. It just kept going and go. It's like, where do we end? What is the bottom line here? Since we have almost been in here for an hour. First, I'm going to invite everybody to continue to leave your comments. I am reading them. If you want your comment to be read, guaranteed, I will take all super chats. Those we already read. We already read one. I would encourage everybody to go over to Voice of College Football and subscribe and like his videos, get involved on his channel, and then follow all of us, especially David, on his Twitter page, Foyeball. on Twitter. And boy, that's a mouthful. I should have recorded that first anyway.
Oh, it's my name on Twitter and it's Foya Ball on the website. But yeah, it's FOIA.
What did I say? The reverse? I apologize.
No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. We have plenty of time here to get things right.
We do. And I was just going to say that. So we're going to go a few more minutes with questions, and then I will start to take comments in the comment section. If you want your comment to be read, though, make it a super chat, and I'll make sure to get it. Otherwise, you're just going to have to trust me, bro. I will get to it eventually. Okay, so back to being you, the wizard. See, you're the expert here, right? So we have to have the wizard do all the choices. Mark and I can't.
I'm far from the expert, but I appreciate the sentiment.
That's all right. So you mentioned Sacramento State. You're talking about a lot of the economics in college football is turned into smoke and mirrors. What you can advertise versus what is real. How much you can like go to the bank and leverage. And I cannot think in my lifetime of maybe back to the SNL crisis or the early internet age where you could just Enron, where you could just take a number, throw it on a board, and just trust me, bro. And that's what it kind of looked like. Sacramento State all of a sudden is worth almost $1 billion over the case of 5 years, or some $165 million a year for 5 years, and that goes to $750 million. You do that over 2 years, you're $1.5 billion. Sacramento State is now worth, and it's just now gotten into FBS. Where's the accountability on some of this stuff? Because Sacramento State fans were counting on every word he said there.
Oh, I'm so mad about that. So I was looking into this consulting firm for a while, and that story happened to break right when I got a bunch of documents back from them. So it worked out really well. But basically, there's this firm that schools hire just to get a good press release, like to say, like, hey, we're worth this amount of money. We bring this much like economic impact in. And what I was able to find was that the firm that does this for a lot of schools just essentially made up their numbers. They pulled it off a random LinkedIn blog post from some guy who works in Malaysia at some marketing firm that doesn't even cover sports or anything. And they basically said, like, anytime you're on TV, it's worth X amount of dollars. And they multiplied that times all the amount you're on TV. And so that's how you get these crazy numbers. Sacramento State says we're going to be on TV, this many times in the MAC, and that therefore that is worth $250 million a year. It's not, it's just totally made up. It's like it's a discredited science that people like have been saying is terrible for 20 years. But just like the numbers I got were also from Louisville, which was, they did a press release a couple months ago. They $0.2 billion impact, completely made up number. But in their big like plea to like save college sports that they published last week, they were like, we're worth, we generate $3 billion in economic impact and we can't make a profit. It's like, if that was true, then you're the worst businessman of all time. Like, if you know $3 billion, it's just like, it's totally made up. And all these, it's like this consulting firm, which was basically just designed so like people could go to boosters and donors and be like, look how much impact we have on the world. That's why you should give us money, is now turning into these like this argument for like people using his actual finances, and it's deranged. It's like very bad math, very bad science, and it's a very bad precedent to set because it's totally made up. And you can see that even when you prove that the numbers are false, schools are still going to use them. So it's like they're literally, it does feel very Enron-esque. They're just like straight up lying to your faces.
Mark, are you there?
Oh, it's my turn.
Sorry, I was very excited about it.
I apologize. Yeah, I just said, Mark, it's you.
Yeah, so we can't believe those numbers. That's a shocker. Okay. I didn't delve too much into the Sac State. I just heard all the jokes, running jokes on social media. That's all I saw regarding that. Maybe I've got a question. I'll just direct this toward David because, of course, Nathan and I get together all the time. In terms of the playoff, what do you think is going to win out here? Now that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are on record of having different playoff models, that's what I thought was a little fascinating, because you got these two guys that both want to show that they have the most powerful conference and that their word is going to be the one that rules. But then they come out publicly here in the off season, or it's probably back during the season, of what playoff models they want to see. And so to see this play out and who's going to win, which I'm sure it's going to be some kind of combination of both, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to once they both went on public record with their playoff proposals.
I just want to go on record and just to say it's so. Am I allowed to curse on here? I can't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Demonetized.
It's a mature channel.
It's so fucking stupid. Like everyone with half a brain saw this argument coming from a million miles away. They were going to say like JMU and Tulane got in. They were going to lose. That was sort of clear from the jump. Like, and they were going to say, oh, the system is broken. We need to push out the G5 schools. We need to make sure, the SEC gets more teams. And it's like, okay, like, so they lost. Like maybe they couldn't compete with Oregon, but at the same time, like, God, I don't want to be like, that's why they play the games kind of guy. But like, if you're just going to like cut out a bunch of schools that are fun, that are interesting. I have a lot of friends who went to JMU. They had a blast. They traveled for the game. Like, sure, they didn't beat Oregon, but there was a very real possibility they could have beat Oregon. There was a possibility Tulane could have upset Ole Miss. If John Summerall hadn't left and Lane Kiffin had, like, you're talking about a totally different thing. Or if Lane Kiffin had stayed and John Summerall had stayed, maybe it was, maybe the outcome would have been different. That's sort of it. But it's like, every time there's like the slightest little excuse to freak out, these people freak out. And it's like, calm down. Like you knew, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti knew, like, before this was happening, that JMU was going to lose. And they don't need to have a meltdown. They don't need to change everything the instant. It's like, have the fucking like cognitive recall of someone more than a toddler. Like you've seen bad teams win games. You've seen like overmatched teams have great upsets. Like at least seem like you enjoy the sport somewhat. As opposed to just being this like cold mechanical decision maker. Like I don't know, but it'll be 24 teams is the to answer your question. It'll be 24 teams probably, and who knows? They'll probably even push it through next year. I don't know if they can, but they probably will.
So I don't know where you stand on this, Nathan, but I'm right there with David. This is
ban Notre Dame from the playoff.
I want 24.
No matter what.
I want 24. Yeah.
You want? Oh, okay, Nathan. You want 20. That's right. You do.
I've always wanted 24. Yeah.
I don't know if David and I are in the same place with the number of teams, but I'm right there with him when it comes to the approach. Number one, I think it's absurd and it's wrong to what word am I looking for? Just to assume basically who the best teams are in the best conferences, to say we're going to start the season before anybody plays it down, throws a pass. The Big Ten gets 5 and the SEC gets 5, or what are the numbers? This is our model because we're assuming that they're the best teams or their conferences have the best teams. No, let the games play out and then have a reasonable system of selection, which I won't go into my format, but that's the one thing that annoys me about that. The other is, if there are 6, let's say we land at 16, because I would like to be at 16 most likely. I don't have an issue with, we know basically the 14 best teams in the country are there. And then you know what? About a quarter of these power conference schedules are made up of group of 5 teams that they play. So they are included in this sport. I don't have an issue with, that's what makes March Madness so fun. Yeah, we know the best teams in the country are there. So they're going to be there. What's wrong with having the 30th best team in the country there and the 40th best team in the country there as wild cards? Because how crazy is it going to be? And it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, it may take 20 years when on opening weekend of the playoffs, it's the fourth quarter and Kennesaw State leads Georgia 24-20 with 5 minutes left in the game, and everybody's freaking out, and it's the craziest thing we've ever seen.
I mean, I don't think that'll take 20 years. And, I think a lot of people pointed to college basketball as sort of the fix to this, where they're like, look, sometimes we'll talk about bubble teams, although they talk about bubble teams all the time now, but like once the bracket is set, people are set for maybe an hour and then they move on. But apparently we've been having a week-long conversation about Miami of Ohio. So like maybe college football is actually trickling down to other sports in a way we don't really want. Because it seems like we're going to have, instead of making the college football playoff bigger and solving these debates, making it bigger is just going to cause more problems after having sat through all these online arguments about the bracket this year. So who knows? People are gonna be mad no matter what.
I think whoever the bubble team is, you're always going to have the bubble conversation. You could go to 64 teams in football. You're still going to continue to have a bubble question.
But for reasonable people, Nathan, at some point it becomes irrelevant.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think, and I love this.
Where's the fun in being
I like 24 because it's essentially you just take the 25, drop one off, and there's your teams. Straight seeding, go play ball.
Where do you get?
What was the top 25? Who would have gotten?
You blow away all of the independent polls, or use them all to build one giant computer model. I mean, we've got like artificial intelligence that's solving genomes to cure cancer. We can't come with some sort of a math problem that would be able to prove out in a reasonable way the top 24 teams. I will refuse to believe that. I hated the BCS. I was not a fan of computers.
It's starting to grow on me. I'm like, but now you're like,
take all the emotion out of it, right? I don't care if you have an AP coaches poll. I don't care. Coaches poll. I don't care if you have an AP poll, but I want Sagarin in there. I want like 8 different polls, combine them together, run through an AI model, and come up with 24 teams. Where is the harm? Where is the harm of doing that? What's the worst thing that could happen? The math misses some elite team that would have been 24. What's the chance that happens?
The worst BCS
very small
from 10 years ago, and those were pretty bad.
I would go this route.
But
that was only 14. That was only 2 and 14,
and that was never any fun.
Sorry, I think we got that was only 2 or 4 teams.
No, I know.
Right? Yeah, I'm talking about 6 times that. Anyway, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, the further I've separated myself from the BCS, the more I like the BCS as well. I hated the BCS at the time, and then it dawned on me, it's not the BCS, it's that we only have 2 teams. It's that how in the world, there are going to be championship-worthy teams that are going to be left out because you're only selecting 2, and there's usually 2 left out or so that have just as good a resume as the ones that were selected most years. For people that thought the BCS was the cure-all with only 2 teams, you can go almost every year and bring up teams that had resumes that were worthy of having a shot, an opportunity.
The BCS gave us incredible games and gave us blowouts. That's the thing. Like, there's nothing that is ever going to stop blowouts, one way or the other. And it's like, that's the thing. I think these people are obsessed with sort of perfecting an imperfect thing. Like, it doesn't, there's no way you can craft a bracket where every game is going to be, close in the fourth quarter. That's just not how it works. It's not how people works. It doesn't happen in the NFL playoffs. It doesn't happen in any sport. So it seems silly to try and keep tuning and tweaking this thing that doesn't want to be fine-tuned in any way.
See, Nathan, I would eliminate all the polls and I would come up with an objective system, much like the NFL. But the only way you can do that, because there's no way you can compare these teams in different conferences because they don't play each other enough, is that you come up with a national schedule where you have non-conference scheduling where they're playing each other more, and then you can legitimize the records more that way.
But I'm agreeing with you, and I'm saying everybody's saying bemoaning the larger the playoff gets, the less impactful out of conference games are, and I think it's the exact opposite. I think you can have more out of conference games and run the risk of losing if you go to 24 teams, because now you're going to get 2, 3, 4 teams from every conference in to the playoffs. So who cares if you lose Georgia, Ohio State? Both those teams are going to be in the playoff and have a chance to square off anyway. I think the more you expand the playoff, the more you objectify and take away subjectiveness in the polling to get the 24 teams. That in the CFP, that's my opinion. That's how we get there.
So to me the issue is everybody or certain people freaked out when we went from 4 to 12 because they were looking at Ohio State and Michigan are both undefeated. That game's not going to mean anything because they're both in the playoff, et cetera. Georgia, Alabama. And I get that. But for every 1 or 2 of those games there became dozens of games that now had meaning because LSU 7-2 and Auburn 7-2, and that was just a decent game before. It didn't mean anything because they're both out of it. Now it's super meaningful game. But I tend to think if we get to 24, we're going to pass that threshold and we're going to get to a place where Nebraska and Iowa play at the end of the season. They're both 8-3. Who cares? They're both in the playoff. The loser is 8-4, and they're the 23 seed instead of the 16 seed. I think we're passing that threshold if we get to 24, and we're becoming all sorts of 9-3, 8-4 teams. They don't need to win.
Well, except there's an exception. The higher seed teams get a home game in the first round.
But I don't think that this game doesn't matter anymore. Or they're both on playoff. Who cares? Maybe that argument matters if you're a casual fan wanting to tune in, but for the teams that are playing, for the fans of that sport, it still matters. It's still it still matters very much. They still care. So maybe you might have a game where some people rest their starters in a new world like that. But it's these people don't stop wanting their team to win because they're already in the playoff or wanting to beat their rival because they've got a seed secured. They do need to get rid of conference championship games. I think that would be the easiest fix. And that's something I've been talking about for years. They should have done that a long time ago. But I don't think games will ever stop mattering because that doesn't happen. People still watch them. People still care. You're not going to turn, you aren't going to turn it off unless there's a better game that matters a little more. But it's not like they stop keeping our interest or keeping our focus. When people say games don't matter, they don't mean that. They're just making sort of a nonsense argument of well, maybe I won't watch that if you're not going to go hiking with your wife because Nebraska's 9-3 and Iowa's 9-3. Shut up.
Maybe you will. I don't know.
Actually, I hate the college footballs in the fall because I love fall and I do lots of stuff. So I will be out all day and then catch the night games with some friends, and people just how do you cover the sport if you are not glued to a TV? I'm well, there's a lot going on in the world, and I check it on my phone. So
you're a very healthy person. Mark, I'll give you the last question, and then we'll get to some comments here.
Yeah, so I kind of led into the last one, highlighting scheduling and giving a brief overview of what I would do. David, do you have any issues with scheduling?
Nah. I mean, it would be cool if there was a scheduled release day, but that gets so watered down with leaks and team press releases and stuff. If they could actually keep it secret and just drop it, that would be awesome. And then you have this mad scramble to book tickets and book travel. That would be super fun. But I'm, outside of tightening travel stuff and getting rid of the very weird rivalries that we're making fun of, I'm all right with it. At the same time, who knows? Maybe Virginia Tech and Cal played a crazy overtime game this season, and maybe Tech won overtime if Cal comes back and upsets them. It is tough that maybe I would go back to sort of the divisions within the conferences so you can play teams more regularly. I don't know if Tech plays Cal next year. I think that's a problem. These conferences are too big to create sort of that consistency regardless of the geography. So I would love to see internal divisions within conferences come back so you can build sort of more anger and stuff like that. But that would be my only sort of real concern and issue.
Is that it, Mark? You got it?
I think I'm good to go.
All right. Well, you guys have comments. Again, I will read all super chats, and then I'll pick and choose the other ones that I like. Mark and David, you guys want to stick around a few more minutes?
Yeah, I got a few more minutes. So
sure.
Why not?
Okay. All right, let's get some questions from people that are smarter than us. Let's do that. The Evil Badger, $2 super chat. I just want to give Ryan Willie, who is the Evil Badger. He has challenges that we all can. He all the prayers we can give to Ryan. Ryan, you have ours. Thank you. Keep fighting. And again, if you need me, send me a text. He sent me a text today, and he's doing okay, just so everybody knows. Without context, you guys don't know that, but I'm just letting everybody else know. But he is spot on with this one because I 100% agree with him. Notre Dame, $2 super chat. Notre Dame must join a conference, no special CFP access. And I would add to that, if the CFP changes and requires them to be in a conference, they will join. But otherwise, I don't think they ever join a conference. Comments, questions. I'm going to throw this to Mark first, since I saw David's hand going up and down.
Like I said before, Notre Dame's going to do what they want to do, and I don't blame them for that. I thought it was the most ludicrous thing when you really think about it, that in 2018, Notre Dame and Clemson were playing in a national semifinal, and Ohio State and Oklahoma had to be selected. One got in, one didn't get in because they had to play when Notre Dame was sitting on the couch for conference championships, and one of them got left out. So that's 2018. 2 years later, in 2020, Notre Dame's allowed to play in the ACC, and they're playing Clemson in the ACC championship game, which should have been the game that was played 2 years earlier. Yes, Notre Dame runs amok and gets to do whatever they want. Not their fault. Again, I agree with the commissioner argument that they're going to do whatever they want for the good of for the conference, and the same thing with Notre Dame. But yes, Notre Dame, it's not 1990 when Miami and South Carolina and Syracuse and West Virginia, and there was a zillion independents. There's basically one. Nobody cares about any others. There's one, and they need to join a conference along with everyone else.
David.
I take back everything I said about the SCORE Act, about players. If Congress passes a law that says Notre Dame has to be in a conference, like whatever else they do, to
it doesn't matter.
I'll be along for the ride. They could, like I think it's absurd that they like get this special treatment. I understand why, but like that's the thing. If you don't have a like strong, I'm not like pro dictator, but if you don't have a strong man to like, will these teams to do it? You have things like Notre Dame where they're able to just say like, okay, we deserve a spot. Like it's a little better now with the college football playoff, but the BCS stuff where they were just like automatically guaranteed a slot, I thought was just like practically criminal.
Well, they are now guaranteed. They are 12 teams. They get in every year if they're in the top 12. So
well, not last year, yeah. But they're like I feel like the BCS, and correct me if I'm wrong, was a little. I guess it was similar to that, but yeah, no.
So this, can you guys imagine if this plays out next year, where obviously, let's say there's only one G5 that makes it in. It's a normal kind of year that you got to be in the top 11, of course, if you're any other team in the Power Conference to make it. But Notre Dame's number 12, but they're going to displace number 11 and number 12 and kick out number 11. And now we know that the committee's not going to allow that. They're going to, they're going to manipulate the rankings so they don't have to give that appearance. But that's what could happen.
It will happen. I don't think it's
going to happen because they'll manipulate the rankings and they won't let it. They don't want to give the appearance that, we're screwing, pick your team, Virginia Tech, they're number 11 in the country.
Yeah, well, yeah,
they're out. We're flipping them.
Have some words.
Yeah, except when it came out, the memorandum of understanding that nobody knew about. I've been doing this for almost 4 years. When that contract was signed, nobody talked about this special nuance edition for Notre Dame. It only came out in November. Everybody says, oh yeah, I published it. Ross Dellinger, all these people. I talked about it all the time. That's a bunch of crap. They might have done one tweet, but nobody said anything about this special caveat for Notre Dame. And since that time, there has started to see a public shift. Look, at the end of the day, they have not won a national championship since 88. Last time anybody else won one was BYU in 84. Other than that, everybody else has been in a power conference. It is ridiculous that that team continues to get Newt Rockne-esque coverage. It's absolutely ludicrous.
I mean, they did just go to a national title game, I think, last year. So, but
yeah, but
I agree.
They had to. Where were they to get there? Right? They lost to Northern Iowa, or was it Northern Indiana?
It was Northern Iowa.
Yeah. Illinois. Thank you. They lost to Northern Illinois, and then they went out there and just beat up on the rest of the schedules. That's how these schedules are built. I don't know. We're not going to solve it here. I'm just saying. I think the Notre Dame exception is ridiculous. And
Sounds
you guys
like we agree on that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't think.
No disagree.
Yeah.
Okay. Kalani says, good to have you here tonight, Kalani. Appreciate you watching. They do have mathematical and scientifically proven systems or methods for ranking, sorting, and esports, and other online competitions use them for everything from Madden to chess. Bayesian method. I don't know that.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
You know that? Okay.
I've heard of it. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Okay. Well, Mark, you want to say something about that?
The thing I'll say is it goes back to the BCS days when people used to argue for the BCS, and I was more anti-BCS at that point, like I said, than I am now. I used to say, you know what sport should be using the BCS for its playoff model, and they would completely bypass the playoff and just play the World Series, is Major League Baseball. They've got the most data. They play 162 games. The BCS formula would work perfect for Major League Baseball. It doesn't work for the less games you play against each other. The metrics to me aren't as valid. Texas Tech did not. They were the best team by far. Sorry, Nathan, of course. BYU was by far the second best team in the Big 12, but Texas Tech was clearly the best team in the Big 12. They didn't play one team outside the conference. Nobody.
No.
So how do you evaluate that when you don't have enough metrics? That's why you fix scheduling, in my opinion, first, and then the metrics become more valid, that you can go through all these calisthenics with the metrics being valid because these teams are playing each other outside the conference.
Yeah. And I mean, just wholeheartedly at a time when we're putting computers in charge of everything, like, let's just not. Like, I would love to get mad at a computer for its college football rankings, but I'd much rather actually like people in the college football playoff committee. Like, I know who they are and I know what their bias is and I know why they suck. Like, I don't want to have to like look at another black box algorithm for like another thing in my life. So just, yeah.
Okay.
Get it out of here.
But
yes, I am like,
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was saying, but yes, there is some charm for the BCS. Some nostalgia.
So let's quit calling it BCS and say just a AI computer formula, because at the end of the day, BCS had problems too as a structure. So, yeah. Anyway, let's see here. Bulldog, Mississippi. Appreciate you being here, Bulldog. He's also a member of the College Football Mafia family. The presidents of all the SEC schools are meeting in Nashville. Reason the possibility of a breakaway is real. Is it, Mark?
Oh, for the SEC and the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's real. They own the sport. They've got the most rear ends in the seats, therefore the most money. And yeah, I think it's real. If there is kind of to David's point, and this is where I'll flip and say, yeah, let's sensibilities override just working for your conference and let's, making $1 billion versus 972 million. Does that matter? So yes, the sensibility should work out. And I hope the SEC, that would be very short-sighted to me to say, the Oklahoma States of the world don't matter, that we can, 85% of the audience out there just watches the SEC and the Big Ten. Therefore we can do this ourselves. Major League Baseball, even for as money hungry as it is, at least tried kind of in a way to say, we realize the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Dodgers need the Royals and the Pirates for competition. Therefore, we're at least going to throw them some scraps through a luxury tax to keep them somewhat solvent and involved. Yeah, they're all needed. I would hate to see the Big 12 go away.
I was gonna say, I think this is where fan sentiment really comes, into play and is really important. Like, we need to remind the SEC every day that they have not won shit in 4 years. Yeah. They can't win a national title. Like, what right do they have? They're completely worthless bums. Like, don't even let them sit on their high horse because they suck. So that is where fans need to really drag them through the mud and bring them down. I'm only half kidding, but it's like, you have these people who are really rich and really, self-absorbed and don't care what other people think. And it's like, the only thing you can do is laugh at them. And they don't like that.
Fair.
So yes.
No, they do not. Greg Sankey, I have literally 12 pages open. I was going to reference to all these articles that's happened since last Friday, and we simply haven't had time. There is no time. You could go 24 hours and still not cover everything. I'm going to give you guys one last topic, and I'm going to ask this first to you, Mark. And it was actually something David brought up at the beginning of the show, and it is the example that I remember bringing up to another show even before I started my channel 4 years ago. And at what point, this is the comment/question, at what point do we have the fans rise up and just sort of take over, a la killing the Super League that happened in soccer in Europe. What was it, 4 years ago now? And it literally was people pitchforks going to the front of the stadiums and saying, we want your heads. We're simply not going to give up Liverpool versus, Brentford. It's just not going to happen. So will that ever happen in college football?
I'm going to insult your audience and all college football fans everywhere. No, that they're not aware enough. They're just going to continue to be abused. If we could watch Major League Baseball go on, threaten a strike year after year. This was every year while I was growing up as a huge baseball fan, that Major League Baseball would threaten a strike, and it would always go right down to the wire. They'd be in spring training, or they wouldn't go to spring training. And then they obviously had 2 or 3 huge strikes, and then they canceled a season. They played all the way to August, took everybody's money, then never even played a championship. They just came back the next year, and all was well, and they suffered a slight decline in attendance, but everybody came back eventually. I just think the American sports fan just is used to being abused. And again, the difficulty of uniting in such a way to make an impact is just way beyond what's going to happen.
David, what do you think about that?
I mean, you're not wrong, but at the same time, as long as we keep thinking that way, you will stay right. So, the time is now. If you're upset with us, voice it. If you have, yes, you're right. The American fan is very placid and is used to being abused by the leagues that, control the sports they love, but nothing's going to change unless you want it to change. That's one of the reasons I'm trying to do my thing, is to sort of show all the behind the scenes machinations and, back channel dealing, and prove that this is something we have a right to see this stuff. We have a right to weigh in on this stuff. It is our money through TV dollars, through ticket sales, through donations to schools. We are the ones who fund and support this. So we should not be afraid to fight for this. I don't know how you stop the SEC from breaking away, whether you boycott, the threaten to boycott games, or, withhold donations, but it's not impossible, and we shouldn't think of it that way.
So Nathan, I'll just add, my little wink there is to basically play reverse psychology and say, you guys are too placid, to use David's comment there, that hopefully I'll make people mad, and somebody will make enough fans mad to do something.
David's here to stir it up. I certainly started my thing so I could make people agitated. I will just say that, Mark, I'm going to give you the last word, and this is there anything more, and I would even put in brackets, even the NFL, more tribal than college football in America? Because I get it. I understand what you're saying. In general, Americans have all these other things to worry about. Is college football really that thing? And yet, brinksmanship, I think we might all be surprised how quickly people finally say, this can't happen. But
I hope I'm wrong.
On that?
Maybe English soccer is, from what I understand. I know nothing about it.
It's psychotic. It's psychotic. But I think college football is about the same thing. The only difference is they're playing in the size of New England or something, and we have an entire continent. So the population differences just make it. It's like high school teams versus the NFL in America, to be honest. Unfortunately, most of the time we got social media. But in this case, we got social media for people to actually make themselves known and raise a ruckus and get it out there. So that's on the side of the fan if it's utilized the right way. But I'm going to have to see it to believe it.
I love it. That'll be the last word. David, tell everybody where to find you and what you do. And please check out foyaball.com. We have a fun story tomorrow on some of this nonsense that the CSC is dealing with, how they're having trouble approving deals from NIL collectives. I kind of explain why. And actually coming up on Thursday, if you really want, I'll give you a little fun little tease. We're ranking what every team spent on fireworks at home games last season. So The number one biggest spender will surprise you, or maybe not. But yeah, if you have a college football team and you want to know how much money they were blowing just to shoot things off during the national anthem and during touchdowns, we have all those figures for you, and that's coming Thursday.
I love it. And
Awesome.
and Mark, one big thing tonight. How'd it go?
Loved it. David, thanks for jumping on. It was great to hear from you. I learned a lot, and I'll have to check out your site for sure.
Please do. And yeah, anyone watching, please check it out. It's like I said, we try to have a lot of fun because as much as I'm, ranting about this, I do think everything about this sport and everything around it is really, really fun and really interesting. And I hope that shows in my work.
So Nathan, I won't pass on the opportunity. I think you were giving me to promo something.
No, I was going to cue you again. Please do. Go.
I will say this, that for anybody that's been watching me for a long time, no, I'm not producing the level of content that I did in the past, but we will come back with a lot of good rankings. So I love to rank things. So I keep a spreadsheet that's got 16 or 18 categories on every school in the country all time. It's being updated right now. We're going to go through every conference. We're going to rank everything from winning percentage to conference winning percentage to major bowl wins to overall bowl wins to NFL draft selections, first round picks, award winners, all sorts of stuff. And we also do a computation that I don't see anyone else do out there, not about conference championships, but what is your conference championship winning percentage? Because it's kind of hard to win a conference championship when you're not in the conference. So certain schools have had a big advantage being in a conference since 1900. So we're going to start to release those lists here in the next few weeks.
I love it. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and the Voice of College Football tonight, where you can always catch Mark producing some fantastic stuff. I think, David, you're off to a great start. I've been following you since the very beginning, and I think we can. I'd love to do more stuff with you. I'd love to have you on. We could dive into some of your data and really have people. Because the Sacramento State thing, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that to me was just outlandish when I saw it. And so anyway,
yeah, it's at the top of our website. So yeah, check it out.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mark, for being here. One big thing. We'll do it again next month. David, again, thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to sign out. Everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble. Mark and David, don't hang up. After the show's over, I'll bring you up. I want to talk to you for a second, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure.
Okay, everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble. Peace, love, and take care of your neighbor. That's all I can say. Everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble, and we'll talk to you later. Peace out. Bye, Mark. Bye, David.